Hello and welcome to the podcast. This week we have a really special episode. We are going to hear from 4 doctors from 4 states across the country that have been in an accountability group for 5 years. In 2016-17, we kicked off accountability groups inside our Practice Accelerator. And over the last 5 years, each of them have gone on their own journey to build their own practice with their own unique vision. I'm super grateful for the opportunity to share with them. There's so many great lessons in here about what it takes to be a physician entrepreneur and why it's a lot easier to not go on that path alone. This is actually, one of the most heartwarming podcasts that I've ever recorded. And I think that wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever type of practice that you have, there'll be some deep and powerful learnings from this half an hour. Enjoy. So a warm welcome to the podcast. This is a really exciting moment. This is actually the first time on the Evolution of Medicine podcast that we have 4 different doctors from 4 different parts of the country on at one time. So why don't we just start by everyone introducing themselves and a little bit about their practice. So Bill, why don't we kick off with you?
Dr. Bill Hemmer. I'm in a little town in central Illinois that is a mile square, 4,500 people. I've been in practice here for 25 years and continue to practice every day. I'll be in my practice in about 2 hours.
Amazing. Welcome, Bill. Thanks for being here. All right, Dr. Tracy Jones.
Thank you, James. I'm Dr. Tracy Jones. I'm from Northern Virginia. I'm a board-certified family physician, but in my current practice, I'm functioning as a cranial osteopath, and I specialize in the growth and development of the face.
Amazing. All right, Dr. Russell Scher.
I'm Russell Scher. I am a chiropractor. I practice primarily functional medicine, and my focus is on autoimmunity. And I practice in Asheville, North Carolina.
Great. Welcome, Doc. And Dr. Todd D'Elia.
Hey, thank you for having us. I am in practice just outside Tampa, small town. I've been in practice for 30 years as a chiropractor, and probably 99% of my practice is now functional medicine, with gut health being our number one focus.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you all for being here. And I guess just to kick this off, we're coming to you in this podcast and in this format because ultimately, all of these providers, one of the things they have in common is back in 2016-17, they joined our Practice Accelerator. And as I came to find out just in the last couple of months, have actually been meeting like almost every week since 2017 in an accountability group. And we've talked a little bit about accountability group. If you've been watching listening to the podcast, you would have heard Helen Perks a few weeks ago talk about, what it took for her to implement towards her vision of practice success. So let's just start at the beginning. So, the 4 of you are, all in your own journey in functional medicine. Let's take it right back to the first time that you met. And I guess who wants to start about what that was like at the beginning and the sort of the early days of collaborating as 4 health professionals, all on their own path towards building their own unique practice, but probably with a lot of commonality.
Well, I'll start. So for me, when I started with the Evolution of Medicine, it was always about how I can further my own knowledge by tapping into so many other different people and what they're actually doing and what's working for them. And so when I started the accountability group, I'm like, you know what, this is fantastic for me, because then I can look at other people, what is working for them, and then mirror that same thing in my own little practice. And that's the way I got started in the accountability group, and it's been nothing but fabulous for me.
Yeah, I'll chime in next. I was, I worked for the Army. I was a family physician, osteopathic family physician in the Army. And then I started having kids. And so I went to part-time work with Kaiser Permanente in urgent care. So I never ran a private practice. I had no idea how to do that. And so I started my solo practice in 2015 with just the hope of can I get people better with nutrition and supplements and things? And I had no idea about business at all. So that's how I found the Practice Accelerator. When I started getting people well, then I needed to figure out how to do it and make money and, make it sustainable. And so these guys, when I was in a group with these guys, they'd all had been in private practice for like 20 years. So that was huge for me because all these little things I didn't know, like how to develop a budget for my practice. And, they would just feed me, information after information, one thing, not getting lost on too many things, so all of these different ideas that, of their 20 combined, 20 years of experience or 20 plus years of experience each that they imparted on me was like huge for me to continue on and figure out what I wanted to do and how I was going to do it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you shared that because obviously, there is a difference. And what we see in groups in all realms, even in like group visits, is that there's always someone who's been trying to get healthy for a bit longer than other people. And so that, that differential on that is valuable because the things that the lessons of the person that's just starting need to learn have been learned by other people. And there's a sort of a synergistic force that's created that is really valuable to everyone, but doesn't really cost anyone anything. I guess I'd love to ask you, Todd or Russell, the average experience in my estimation of providers was you'd go to a few conferences a year and you'd sit in the lecture hall and you'd learn. And then maybe at dinner that night, or maybe out in the back, you would like have a little discussion about how it's going in practice. But, the sort of level of peer-to-peer sharing of kind of best practices was limited. And one of the things I found when I was first starting out my career is that even in the same town, sometimes the one person who was integrative minded and the other person who was functional minded didn't know each other and certainly didn't communicate. So what was it like, I guess, being in a sort of a regular pulse of communication with other people having their own experiences?
Well, Todd, do you want to go? I'll have a few words.
Sure.
First of all, I joined the Practice Accelerator because what appealed to me was the concepts of having an online practice and creating a micro practice. And there were all sorts of, the trend that functional medicine is going really appealed to me. And what I found is initially there was a lot of work to do. The Practice Accelerator was pretty comprehensive, and it was really difficult implementing what was required was just so complex, and finding the time to do it was so difficult that's why we joined an accountability group to actually have some support. And we did that for a few years, but answering your question, James, is eventually something else started happening. And what started happening is, number one, we became friends. Number two, we supported each other, and we shared resources actually, there were 5 of us who started initially. One person dropped out after about, I think, 1 or 2 years. But it was a support group. It wasn't just an accountability group where we supported each other in our endeavors and sharing our resources and sharing our experiences. And that's why I think that's what's driven us to continue together as far as we have.
Could you come up with, is there an example that any of you want to give about like where one of you hit, I guess, a roadblock or something that might have derailed you had it not been for being able to talk about that in this structure?
Oh, there's more than just one for sure, James. I think I echo everything that Bill, Tracy, and Russell have said. And I think for me, the accountability group has really allowed us to kind of bounce ideas off each other. And as Russell said, we've leveraged some resources and we tweaked it, and everyone's got a different take on it and a different angle that just solidified to really optimize a process, following some of the accelerator framework that was provided. I think for me, one of the blocks I ran into that all 3 of them were really helpful is let me go back. So sometimes they're just some good clinical questions. You get a complex case, and these guys have been phenomenal with the collective understanding as clinicians here. So clinically, they've been very, very helpful when you get a tough case. So that's always much appreciated. And I think we run into different, for me personally, there was, I was always like a shotgun approach, and Bill and Tracy and Russell have always kind of kept me accountable. And Bill, Bill coined our phrase at least once every month. We have pick one thing, the one thing, right? So that really helped me stay focused on laser sharp, one task focus. So, and if it wasn't for the accountability, who knows how much further behind I'd be if it wasn't just taking one step at a time that these guys have always held us accountable to every week.
Yeah, I think one thing that's unique about you guys, which I loved, is that I know that a lot of accountability groups that we started off, that the vision was exactly what's happened here, right? Not just accountability, but tracking your progress and friendship and all the things that happen when like-minded people, come into connection like this. But I think I've spoken to a lot of other people that are like, oh yeah, we did it for a bit, but then as soon as Nicole stopped doing it, we stopped doing it. Was there tell me about that transition where I guess there was sort of like someone telling you what to do versus you guys now it coming from internal, and that shift. Was there anything in there for you guys, and how did you sort of get over that barrier where many other groups I know kind of stumbled at that point?
Well, I think that the biggest thing was when Nicole decided that she was going to be done, all four of us were like, no, I don't want to be done. We're just like, this is so valuable for us. And it's so much a part of who we are and how we're moving forward in our practices that we're just like, oh, okay, if Nicole's not going to be there, let's just start our own thing, And so that's really what I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, and we also kept a lot of the framework that she had
That's right.
started, and I think that was key. We start off with just a 2-minute recap of our week, and then we move into about 10 minutes or so each about what we're working on now, questions we have, are we stuck, do we need a little feedback? And then we take Bill's one thing again and do a wrap up of what's the one thing we're going to do before next week. And so we've used that framework for pretty much every meeting, and we keep it to an hour. And I think those were keys, because in those meetings in the beginning, they went on and on and on as we were learning how to do this. But we've really learned how to be concise. And again, with the feedback from the group, sometimes you come in with like a blur of 10 minutes of stuff, and you walk out with the answer that you were looking for. And I think that's one of the things that's kept us going.
How would you guys compare and contrast maybe the early days where you were working on implementing lessons from the accelerator, as opposed to maybe is there a time further on where the range of things that you're implementing got wider, just because obviously Bill's practice is this way and Russell's is this way, and maybe there's sort of the edges are, there's more difference than there is commonality? Or is that the case? I don't know. Has that changed? Because at the beginning, when we started the accelerator, we called it the 60-day accelerator, because we were like, you could get it all done in 60 days if you just motored through it. And then we were like, well, look, hang on a minute. It's probably going to be an ongoing progression, and it really depends on how much time you have. And, ultimately the journey of building, your dream practice is going to go through a few different iterations as your personal circumstances change, as you bring on new people, as your vision maybe evolves through the patient care. So where you are now and the things that you're doing today, how far divorced is that from the course?
Well, for me,
go ahead, Russell.
I worked on implementing the practice accelerator, and I completed most of it. But I found that relative to my goals of creating an online presence and having a micro practice, I moved on from there. And what I found, so I did most of that, and then what was next? So for me and for Todd, I think we at about the same time, we moved on to Sachin Patel's group, and that kind of provided the next step for us. Where today, I would say that what my goal was in 2016, 17 has been accomplished. I do have a micro practice, successful, busy, and I have an aspect of my practice which is online, which is exactly what I wanted. And now there's continued room for growth and improvement, and looking out as what is next. and this group provides that support for me.
Actually, let me dive a bit further into that. Maybe we could do another round here, just to like for each of you, I guess, to share that vision. Because Russell, I know you and I have talked, and you've taken a role now with the Integrated Society of North Carolina, and starting to have an effect on how integrated medicine progresses in your state. So maybe we could just go around and say, like, okay, where were you when you first started the Practice Accelerator, what that journey looked like, and then what it opened up? Because one of the things that is exciting for me is just seeing in the Practice Accelerator alumni the range of vision that has occurred, right? Some people wanted to be a celebrity doctor. Some people wanted to have a franchise. Some people wanted to just like have their little practice and help on other areas. Or some people just wanted to like work 2 days a week and do other things on the side. So why don't we just let's do another round as far as like where you were when you started and what that journey has looked like, and sort of how your vision has evolved, as you've been able to sort of like take ground in this practice journey.
Well, sure, for me, of course, James, you and I met the first time out in Utah, for the membership, when you were doing the membership program. And my practice has morphed quite a bit since then. And now I have an online presence. And my goal is to still, very similar to your goal, is to change the way healthcare is performed in this country. And every step that I take is moving towards that. And these 3 other people have helped me, and I've bounced so many ideas off them, and every one of them is coming to fruition. And so my journey is still continuing and will continue with your help and the help of these 3 other people.
Well, tell me a little bit about what you've got going on now, Bill.
Well, so my latest endeavor is called Inflamunity, which is the combination of inflammation and immune response. And it's a healthy lifestyle program that I'll launch actually completely by the end of this year. And that's going to have encompass health coaching. It's going to encompass nutrition, supplement sales, the whole gamut of things that help everybody in a very cost-effective way to be able to create their own healthy lifestyle within their own home.
That sounds, relevant for today's world, and maybe
Absolutely.
wasn't as obvious when you started pre-COVID. Great. So, how about you, Tracy?
Yeah. So when I first started, I was doing home visits. I had the ultimate micro practice. And that's actually what drew me to the Practice Accelerator, reading about, I had learned about a doctor back when I was in residency in the early 2000s who had a micro practice out in Oregon. So I always kind of liked that idea. And then when I heard the Practice Accelerator talking about an evolution of medicine talking about it, I was like, oh, this is for me. So I had this little micro practice. I was going to my patients' homes, kind of go like pulling out their flower, being like, look, are there any nutrients in here? They'd be like, no. And then I'd talk about supplements and whole foods and put out my osteopathic table and do a little osteopathic treatment. So that's where I was. But very quickly in 2016, I learned about the ALF, Advanced Light Wire Functional. It's a dental appliance that was developed by a dentist and an osteopathic physician working together that helps to grow the face. And that was what changed my practice, because it was, I started to understand the importance of how our facial structure and function impacts health. And that wasn't something I could change with someone's nutrition or a supplement. So they, as I met these dentists, I started getting calls from patients that were way too far away for me to go to their homes. So then I transitioned into working in offices. So I have 2 different office locations where I sublet space and go and treat the patients. Now, my biggest problem is that hands-on osteopathy, I'm limited by the amount of office time I have. And so I've wanted to deliver all of that education, about how our face grows and develops from infancy and all the way through old age, and how our modern life has changed our face and how that has created medical problems that are difficult for us to fix today. So to try to get that education out there, that's what I'm working on now, developing that content, getting it in a way that people can understand it, and then putting it online. So I've bounced, when I started, I couldn't even make a video. I'd work so hard. I'd make this video, I'd show these guys and they'd be like, it's not you. And so with their help and feedback and support, it took me a couple of years, but I finally got comfortable talking on video. And now, I share with them all my presentations that I make. I'm like, does this make sense? Do you understand it? And, then I know, taking their feedback, I go to version 2 and version 3 until I get a product that I can put forth, to and have others understand too. So it's made huge progress, huge changes in my practice.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I have to say, I've had, about a year ago, actually, I got hit in the face by a cricket ball and I broke my nose, and it was like a significant trauma, actually. And seeing a DO locally who was like very skilled in understanding how the face is constructed and what needs to move in what direction was a huge value add, and something that I'm super grateful for to this day, because it was like, you don't realize like how all the different parts of the fascia and the face move. And it was just amazing to have someone who was like very, very skilled in that one particular thing. And actually, as I went for my appointment, he did his thing. And I had my, like, at that point, I think 6-week-old baby with me who wasn't sleeping that well. And he just went, dit, 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 and then she slept great from then on. So it was a real value add to the whole family on that way. Well, that's amazing. And, obviously, the world takes you in these different paths, and that's quite a niche area, but there's a lot of need, and there's a lot of value there. So that's great. So Todd, how about you?
So I think when I was making the pivot to functional medicine, I wanted to treat everyone that had everything. And I think the lean canvas and the unique value proposition that you guys put out there for the accelerator really helped me guide into my passion, which was GI health with a family history of Crohn's disease. So I think that really made a big difference for us, for me anyways. And then as time has gone on over the last 4 years, I've become so narrow focused, and it really is helped my practice. And that's what I attract now, to your point. It's just those folks that I'm a specialist in. And it's really helped grow my practice, but it also allowed me to understand the importance of the micro practice, and that's really helped. And much like Tracy and Russell and Bill, we're also focusing on, or realize that, having an online coaching presence, you can get so many more folks to help and allow you to drive to your point you made earlier, James, about driving them to the next level of needing to reach out to a functional medicine clinician. So that's really helped me the last several years really stay focused and really narrow down my niche. That was very helpful.
Beautiful. And Russell, you want to share a little bit about your journey too? I sort of mentioned it a little bit, but I know there's different aspects to it that I might not know everything about.
Well, when I started with you, I had just come from a coaching program that was a very different model that required a lot of staff, and my overhead was extremely high. My overhead ranged between $30,000 and $40,000 a month. And what I found is, although I really enjoyed the work and was really busy and really good, I was really stressed out. And it got to a point where I wasn't enjoying myself. So making the shift into where I am now, where I don't have a lot of overhead, I have a lot of free time, I love what I do, I go at a pace that I'm comfortable with, has made a big difference. And having a micro practice, it just works well for me with my personality. It works much better. One thing I want to say about the term accountability is relative to what we've been doing. You think of an accountability group where everyone holds you accountable, and then you arrive the next week and you haven't done your project and you come with your tail between your legs and you're feeling guilty. And that's not what we were about at all. What we were about was an incredibly supportive group of people working together, interested in your wins, not your losses. And that's what propelled us forward. And we discovered all these extra benefits that we moved into of sharing resources, of exploring other ideas. Now, there were most meetings we stuck to the model that Tracy described, but there were times when we just had conversation about the philosophy of healing or clinical cases or other things as well. So it was intermingled with that kind of stuff, which was really helpful. And well, getting back to your question, having moved into where I am now with by the way, I'm not totally with functional medicine. I do some chiropractic and visceral manipulation, which I find for me vital relative to working with the body. There's so many things that I can help people with my hands, and I don't want to lose that by going totally online. So I enjoy having a part-time brick and mortar practice. And it's been part of my dream, and I've accomplished it with the help of this group.
That's so great. There's a couple of things I want to just come back to what you said there, Russell. So in some of the work I've been doing recently, we've been building these like cohorts of patients and taking them through sort of a group experience. And we at the beginning said, okay, everyone needs to have an accountability buddy, and we pair people off. And turns out that most people didn't want that. And what we did is we ended up changing it to a progress partner. And suddenly everyone was all in on that because everyone wanted progress. So I think one of the things that you overcame as a group is, just making it your own. Like, yes, there's some accountability in there. And the thing that you said, Russell, about like forgiving, when people haven't done it, that was actually a talk that Gabe gave on the very first functional forum as him and a coach, which was essentially like, hey, you have an opportunity when someone doesn't do what they want to do to be, in agreement with that and connect with that, and to not be the sort of typical energy, which is like, you're bad, you're wrong, you'll never get healthy if you don't do it, do what I say. That sort of the old energy of old medicine, right? Could be now, changed anew by being empathetic, being supportive, seeing that person as capable, but also trying to make it easy for them to participate. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that was really an energy that Gabe always brought to the Evolution of Medicine brand and to the accelerator, and spoke about a lot. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And I guess one other thing that I want to share is that, with your experience with this other coaching group, still to this day, the majority of practice management is one guru who did it one way, and then you just follow that way and you'll be all good. And, one of the challenges with running the Practice Accelerator is like there's multiple niches in this group, right? You all have a different thing that you focus on: inflammation, gut health, autoimmunity, facial health, right? So you have a different niches. You all have different business models. So it's like cash, membership, insurance, whatever. There's different ways that you all get paid. To create something that gives people the opportunity to find their own path is actually a lot harder. And we struggle with it all the way along, because, is the Practice Accelerator for people just starting out looking to their micro practice? Or is the accelerator for people who are burned out because they're doing too many things manually and want to automate? Well, it's both, but it's not easy to communicate what it is. It's not easy to write copy. There's a lot of things that are difficult. And what I really came to appreciate from listening to all of you is that you've all been on your own journey. You're still on it. Like, that journey is going forth. You still have a lot of time left in your healing capacity years, and sort of, progress into leadership and to whatever that takes you next. But that also you're treading your own path. And so I guess it makes me proud that we actually achieved that in whatever size of group that we did. But that also, some of the things that we were able to get across is that, it's not about following just one particular way of doing things. It's about finding the way that works for you. And there will be some trial and error in that journey, but that's part of the process of entrepreneurship, is to go through that process. So I salute all of you for finding that path and honoring that in your journey. So, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'd like to say is that Todd told us a long time ago that we're his tribe. And I think that that's really what you're getting at there, James, is that we have created our tribe, and our core 4 people use that tribe to go our own path. Whereas you're trying to make that tribe into a much bigger thing, and you've done that. But it comes back to me is we're all going to have different ways to do things, but we're all going to do it together and be very helpful with each other. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the things I've loved about the group is when you don't do what you say you're going to do, we spend time figuring out why, and because many times it was you were trying to do too much or too many steps or something. And these guys always helped me break it down to that one thing that was tripping me up so that I could go back and actually accomplish the thing that I was stuck on. And that's what I think has been, one of the keys to keeping us going.
Yeah, it's nice to not always have to learn only from your mistakes, but to learn from other people's mistakes so that your speed of, experience can go up much more quickly. And I think that was one of the things I identified early on in being in this world, is that everyone in their own unique individual practice was learning, by their own mistakes only. And it just was like, it was a very slow and probably, punishing experience for people. And it didn't need to be so, so punishing. Russell, I'd love to just get your thoughts. I know that you've experienced a range of like variations of community, and I have as well. And I think we probably all have in all different ways, as we've gone through life. I guess in this sort of very unique iteration, which is like a small professional community that is like hyper focused on, I guess, entrepreneurship in this case. What are the sort of like the sort of commonalities of community, and what are some of the differences for this group that you've noticed as far as like how you experience being in connection to a group of others?
It was a very interesting experience because when we were thrown together, so to speak, I didn't see much commonality at all between us. We're very different cultural backgrounds, live in different parts of the country. The commonality with me, Todd, and Bill is we're chiropractors. So we had some, and we're men. We had Tracy, the only female there, but we didn't really have what seemed on the surface a lot of commonality. But as we started, after a few months, something new started happening between us, regardless of the differences that seemed on the surface. And I would say that deep friendships started to form between us. And there were times that we had conversations outside the group with each other, sharing a whole bunch of things. And right now, it's interesting that we're all having life challenges in some way, or life changes in some way that we're sharing. So there's a deep commonality and an incredible support between us.
That's beautiful. So, and I guess one thing is that's unique as well is that this has been an almost, wholly digital relationship that's been built, right? Obviously, there may be times where you've got together at conferences. Have you ever been in the same room together, all 4 of you?
No.
Not all of us. Todd and I met in an IFM conference a few years ago.
So, I guess I'd love to get your thoughts on technology as a vehicle for community and, what your experience has been of that.
It works. When COVID first hit and everyone started using Zoom, I was like, I know how to use Zoom. I've been doing it for a few years already. So, yeah. And I honestly feel like, sometimes I forget that I've never met these guys in person.
That's right. I think, James, from my perspective, I think technology has been very, very helpful, not only within this community, However, I still believe there is a small fraction that technology will never, ever replace. And that's that personal, that personal intimacy that you share when you're walking. For example, Russell and I had a great walk on the beach down there at IFM. So technology is never going to be able to replace that. I think it's phenomenal for what it does today. And even when you're working with your patients remotely or virtually using technology, it's great. It really knocks out 95% of what you really need to do. But there is going to always be a gap, in my opinion, that you need that personal, in the same room, intimate relationship or encounter, I should say, regarding your patients and our community. I know that Bill, Tracy, Russell, and I are all determined to get together in one big old party eventually.
I want to come.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, look, I guess thank you for sharing that, and I'm grateful, to understand that. And I would imagine also, you guys have different ways of communicating outside Zoom, like a text thread or a WhatsApp group or otherwise, so that there's like potential for both synchronous and asynchronous communication. I think, that's a really powerful force. And I guess just to wrap up, because I really appreciate all of you guys being here and participating in this. And what I appreciate more than anything is what you've done, what you've done as far as, building towards your vision, showcasing out to other people through your daily living and your practice, and sort of how you have built that this is a possible journey that practices can go on. And, here now with the Practice Accelerator twice a year, when we open it up, we're bringing back the accountability group, and Patrick from my team now is taking on that role that Nicole had played. And he's been, learning from, what we did well the first time around and how we want to do it better the next time around. We're looking to, at every level at the Evolution of Medicine up level, whether that's the local practitioner meetup groups or, and communities, or whether it's the Practice Accelerator, really refining how to make sure that this could become a kind of a standard for anyone that comes through, that they could build a community if they were really inspired to do so, that we could get them in a group of people, and that whatever differences they had were actually a benefit overall, that diversity of experience and diversity within the group was actually helpful in understanding the world through different eyes. And that could lead to, yes, one practice success, an upgrade in the human experience, and also, health and happiness to a greater period of a great group of people. So thank you, deep bow to all of you for taking it on and doing it and participating in such a great way. And we look forward to following the story from here, because I would imagine we're not at the end. This is just the beginning. This is the middle. I don't know how you guys feel about that. What do you think?
Well, I'd just like to say one last thing, and that you talked about isolation for years, James. And I think that this group has allowed me not to be isolated in my own little area. And it's created, this community has allowed me to do more things than I ever thought I could ever do just by myself. And so by using these great minds that I get to talk to every week, it's just helped me expand everything that I've been able to do. And I have them to thank for it.
Well, thank you so much for being part of the Evolution of Medicine podcast, and thanks for being part of the community. We've been here with 4 doctors from different states, all executing their own vision for the evolution of medicine. It's been really inspiring to be here with you and to watch you make the journeys individually and collectively. If you're interested in finding out more about the Practice Accelerator, go to goevomed.com/accelerator. You can speak to Patrick. He's the one who actually, is now organizing, collecting, and communing with these groups. But for now, I'm your host, James Maskell. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.